Hi, welcome to episode 390 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura, and you can find me elsewhere as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my hand-spun yarns and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, September 5th. It is Labor Day in the United States, which is a holiday for us. So it has been a lovely 3-day weekend. I hope that you are doing well, that you are healthy, and enjoying some bursts of creativity. We were supposed to be away this weekend. We had made plans to go see my mother-in-law for the weekend, but it turned out she had forgotten that we were coming, and she made alternate plans, which meant I got a bonus weekend at home, which was absolutely lovely. We did some fun stuff, we did some relaxing stuff, and I've done lots of crafting, which is really wonderful. On Saturday, it was beautiful out. It was perfect weather. It was in the low 80s, and so my husband has a motorcycle, and we took the motorcycle out. We went and had lunch on a restaurant patio away from everyone else, which was lovely, and then we took a ride on the motorcycle through the countryside, through some of the farmland that surrounds our area. I come to you from just outside of Kansas City, Kansas. And then we stopped for ice cream, and it was a lovely day. And my husband loves to have those wandering Saturdays, and oftentimes I'm the one to sort of call them off because I want to come home because I have things to do and knitting to do, and because we had an extra third day for the weekend, it was just lovely. And then yesterday he went out and played disc golf with friends all around, and he was gone almost all day, so I had the day to myself. I slept late, I worked a little bit, and then I knit a lot. And then today it's been sort of a combination of things. I slept late, we went out and played disc golf with some friends, and now he is still out playing disc golf, and I came home so I could record the podcast and do a few things before we kick off the new week. So I did get lots of knitting done. As is par for the course, I have a couple projects I am supposed to be working on, and instead I worked on a whole bunch of other things that I will share during this podcast. I kind of gave myself a bit of a break this weekend to work on a few other things. I'm not really letting myself cast on new things, but I am also starting to feel the siren call of fall and knit all the things. And I did have a mission I kind of wanted to do this weekend, and I've done very well at that. So we'll talk about a bunch of that in the podcast. I confess today I did not make tea. We were just out for a while, and it was kind of, it was overcast, but it was very humid, and so we stopped for sodas, and so I have a Diet Dr. Pepper right now, which I love, but is not tea. But that's what I'm going to be drinking today, so nothing special on the tea front for today. So let's get into finished objects. I have a few finished objects, some of which I shared a little bit with you last week, most of which I did not. So one of my missions, particularly now that the weather is just barely starting to turn, here in Kansas, it's we now have highs in the 80s and lows in the 60s, which is actually very much an improvement from what our August temperatures were. Obviously things will get colder because we do live in a place that gets snow and ice. And as the fall, as we turn into fall, there are lots of places around the country and around the world where temperatures get cooler. And it makes me think about knitting hats for charity. So I have a variety of charities that I support. I support one through a yarn store who is a client of mine. They give away hats to kids on Halloween as part of Oklahoma's Sooner Success, which is a program that supports families with special needs children. The second cause that I donate to is Wool Aid, and they take all wool, and it does not need to be superwash. They just want hardy, warm woolens. Usually they want worsted or bulky or above, you know, and they send them overseas. They particularly look for kids, so like babies to teenagers. And then the third cause that I really like supporting is Knit the Rainbow, which is a 501c3, relatively new in the last few years, out of New York City. It's led by Austin Rivers, and their aim is to provide, I believe the correct term now is unhoused, people who are unhoused or have difficulty finding housing because they are LGBTQIA, and support them with warm goods to keep them cozy during the winter. So I sort of have a bunch of different hats today, and they'll be going to all the different causes, and I have bags going for all the different causes, and my plan is to kind of try and knit as many extra hats as I can during September, so that as of October 1st I can send these out so they can be distributed as the weather gets colder. So last week, and I misspoke just a tiny bit, but last week I showed you a hat that I was knitting out of some leftover Briggs & Little, which is spun at a mill in Canada. I mistakenly said the hat was out of Atlantic, and it's actually out of Heritage, which is a 2-ply bulky weight, and this is leftover from a pair of slippers that I knit for my husband and felted, but it is lovely, if a little bit rustic wool. It should be really nice and warm, and I finished the hat that I was knitting out of it. Most of my hats at this point I play with leftovers that I have, and so I do a 2x2 rib and then just a pretty generic vanilla hat. Most of the hats that I knit, I run 80 or 88 stitches. That's mostly for the ease of decreasing around the crown, and it's not really a specific pattern that I use. I've just sort of started doing about that size and knit to 6 or 7 inches depending on how big, and most of those will fit a small adult, but mostly what I'm going for are kids and teenagers, because most of the products that I support, most of the projects that I support are for that. I suppose Knit the Rainbow is not entirely, but I just found that's a pretty good size hat. So this is the first hat. This was done in Heritage in 2 colors. I noted them last week and they'll be noted in the show notes, but I don't have the labels in front of me, so I can't tell you right now. I have a little bit more, but I don't know if I have enough more to do another hat. So that is the first one that I finished. The second one that I finished is I started going through my scraps to try and pull out some, when I thought we were, sorry, let me preface this. When I thought we were going away for the weekend, I thought I would take some hat projects with me because they're simple, they're quick, and I can do them while we play games or do whatever at my mother-in-law's. And so I went through my scraps, and one of the things that stood out to me was that I had a rainbow in scraps. And so I pulled that together and knit a rainbow hat, and this is going to Knit the Rainbow because it seems to make sense. I had some red, which I believe is it is Brown Sheep Prairie Spun, which is a DK weight. The yellow or the orange is a leftover from my sweater from a couple years ago, Vanessa Smith's, and I can't remember the name of the sweater now, but it is Apothecary and it's in the Hearth colorway. I do not know what the yellow and green came from. I really just, I don't remember. I have done plenty of things over the years with both. The blue, I think, is a DK weight. It might be hazelnuts, but I'm not sure. And the purple was some Cascade 220 left over from another project, and then I just added the red pom-pom on top. So this one was kind of fun, all out of leftovers. I used up all the yellow and all the green. I have little bits left over of all the others, and it occurred to me that I'm going to save probably the last little bits of the orange, just in case anything ever happens to my sweater. It's a good idea to save, you know, a couple yards of yarn, just in case you want to darn something or repair something, and I will use the other colors in another hat. I'll have to see if I have more yellows and oranges, because I could probably get away with another rainbow hat. So that was kind of fun. I just kind of improvised that. And then the final hat is sort of the opposite of rainbow, which is what if you want to be very low key, and my colors were almost a little camo on this one. The gray is actually lovely. It is a small tester skein of, I believe, Madeline Tosh Pashmina. No, I guess it's not. I think it was Madeline Tosh Vintage, but it was dyed by someone else. No. Okay, I know what it was. It's a Webb's yarn base, and then it was dyed by Madeline Tosh. It was leftovers. I think my friend Anna gave it to me. The green is again some Cascade 220, and the gray is actually, I think my acrylic. It is Stylecraft DK. So I haven't quite decided where this one's going to go. I think this one might go to Knit the Rainbow as well, because despite the fact that the name is Knit the Rainbow, I have to believe that there are some people who actually would not want to run around in a rainbow hat, and I think kind of a neutrals hat would be kind of fun for that, and then I made the pom-pom out of all 3. So I do have at least 1 or 2 more hats in mind. I have a skein here of Kramer Mausch Chunky, which is 100% domestic wool chunky weight, and it is called Blueberry Ice, so it's actually blue rather than gray. I thought it was gray, but it's blue, and this is a skein of 120 yards, which is probably enough to knit a bulky weight hat, and I might actually have a fun other color to use as the brim. And then the other thing I pulled out is some of my handspun. This is my really old handspun because it is still under the Stash Buckler label, which is what my label was before it became the corner of Knit NT. And this is Norwegian wool, 185 yards of a kind of bulky, squishy weight. And so this was another skein that I pulled out to use up this year to knit some hats. I pulled out some skeins of my early handspun that was not that great or was pretty thick, that had not sold over time, and I'm turning them into hats as well for Wool Aid. So these two are my others that I hope to get done this month. I don't know if I'll get any more done. If I do, great. I still have a box where I just have like a fabric cube full of scraps, and so I could certainly put together some other hats. And we will see, but I just want to kind of top off those boxes before I send them off at the end of the month. So that is kind of in my plans. Not really on my maker list, but yeah. So let's talk about the two projects that are on my maker list and that I should be working on, and am to varying degrees. So the first is that I am knitting a sweater for my nephew. The pattern that I am using loosely is Crozone by Lisa Chemery, who is also Frogginette Knits, and I am knitting him a relatively plain stockinette raglan, top-down raglan pullover. And it is very plain because what I am going to be doing is duplicate stitching a Super Mario Brothers design onto it when I am done with it, but right now I just have the plain knitting. And I did hit a milestone in this. Shortly after we last spoke, I finished the body. So the body is now finished. Like I said, this is a, let me just see, it goes this way. This is a top-down raglan, and I'm knitting a size 8, I believe. Even though he's just about to be 6, I wanted this to last a little bit longer, and so the next size up was an 8. I'm second-guessing my choice, but I'm hoping that it will be okay. And what I have left now are the sleeves, which are not super fun, and as you can see, I have not started. I went ahead and picked up for it and thought I should work on it this weekend, and then I ended up working on different things. So on the list this week is sleeves. If I could get at least one of them done this week, that would be great. My goal for this is the end of the month. His birthday is the end of October, so I have a little bit of time. Honestly, I would love to rip through the sleeves on this and then be ready to do the duplicate stitch, which is going to be the fun part. So I'm going to duplicate stitch towards the bottom of the sweater. I think I am going to wash and dry the sweater before I duplicate stitch so that I know what the fabric is that I'm working with. I am knitting with Dream in Color Classy. That is what this yarn is, which is a superwash, 100% superwash merino. It is 250 yards to the skein. I like Dream in Color because it is a relatively priced kettle dyed yarn. It is about $20, $21 for the 250 yards, which is really nice. It is, you know, a shade above what I might use for kids' knits, but I really, really like that you get sort of that all over, a little bit of texture look without it being highly variegated. This is the bedtime colorway, and I'm using approximately 3 skeins to knit the sweater. I probably will have some left over. I don't know if I'll have enough left over to knit him a winter hat, but if I do, I will. I really like Dream in Color because even though care is recommended to hand wash and air dry, it can be machine washed and machine dried. And so what I do is my sister machine washes and then I tell her to machine dry on low heat. And the reason I do that with these is because they're kids' knits. They get dirty, they get muddy, the kids play hard, and I want these knits to be washable for her. So that is also part of the reason that I use the Dream in Color, because it is superwash, and I always run it through the washing machine before I send it to them, and it always stands up beautifully. I don't think they've had any problems with the sweaters that I've done. So that is in particular why I choose this. It's a worsted weight, it knits up beautifully and quickly, and I find that particularly in the smaller sizes, now my niece and nephew are getting more what I call people-sized. Roxy's going to be 9 and Miles is going to be 6, so you know, we're no longer in the territory of 1 to 2 skeins in very small sweaters, but I really like it. So I am ready to start on the sleeves now, and as I said, hopefully I will motivate myself to do that this week. I might cool it on the hats for just a little bit longer and focus on some of the projects I need to be focusing on, like this. My weekend was just sort of a bit of a break from that. So the next thing I have on my needles is also something that I showed you last week, and I have made some progress, although unfortunately I'm in the middle of a row right now, and I am at a point where I have the wrong number of stitches and I haven't figured out what I did, so I'm likely going to have to rip a few rows. This sweater is called Maema, M-A-E-M-A, and it is by Megan Nodecker, who is also Pip and Pin. The sweater pattern is available off Ravelry. There will be links in the show notes to that, and it is a fairly simple top-down raglan. It is a cardigan, and the details that it has is it has some honeycomb stitch, honeycomb brioche on the front panels and the back panel, and then the sleeves are done in stockinette. So as you can see, here is some of the honeycomb brioche. I am knitting it in a speckled. This is a sample knit for Zen Yarn Garden, so I'm knitting it in their superfine fingering merino, which is, I believe, 100% superwash merino. I don't have the label in front of me right now. It is in this great speckled colorway called Party Time. So you can see it a little bit better here, which is in stockinette, and that is the sleeve, and then we've got the back, which is also in the honeycomb brioche, and then another sleeve, and then the front. The interesting thing about this, and I'll be interested to see how this works, is the gauge for stockinette is quite different than the gauge for the honeycomb brioche. So as you can see, I have quite a bit more in sleeve in terms of length here than I do in terms of honeycomb brioche. I do believe that this will block some, but the gauges are very different, so I'm interested to see how that plays with the sleeves being kind of oversized and flat knit and a little bit longer, and the body being a little bit shorter. I don't know how that's accounted for in the pattern, just because the stitch kind of pulls in more. But it is lovely. It is not difficult. They have made the brioche really, really easy. You're actually sort of only slipping one with yarn overs on every other row. So it's a really pretty simple thing. I was knitting it a little bit last night at knit night, and I can definitely see where the pattern is supposed to go. So it's pretty intuitive as far as that goes. It's just a matter of having the right stitch counts, and I should be not having any problem with stitch counts because I'm still in the raglan increases section, where you're basically increasing at a steady rate, but for some reason I seem to have the wrong number of stitches, so I just need to go back and look at what I did before and if I erred, and how to make that work. So very pretty, and I really, really need to be working on this one. This one is the priority knit because I really need to finish this as soon as possible. I am currently alternating 2 skeins, and I have 2 more, and this is the yarn, like I said, at Zen Yarn Garden Superfine Fingering, and it is in the colorway Party Time, which just is great colors. Oh, you know what? I might have it. I might have it. Yes, superfine fingering. Sorry, 90% superfine superwash merino, 10% nylon. So that is what I am doing this sweater in. So I didn't realize that I had these in there. I also have a Dream in Color one, which actually belongs in the other one. Yeah. So that is what I'm doing. Oh, and I found a tool that I want to show you in a few minutes. So that is what's going on there. I have one more cast on that I had sort of been planning on, sort of not been planning on, and that is that Sarah Shira of Imaginits? No. Not Imaginits. Imaginary Landscapes. Thank you. Imaginary Landscapes. She is the gnome lady, and she releases fun gnomes throughout the year. And I participated in her last mystery gnome-along, which was over the summer, and made a really cute gnome. And she has just released a brand new pattern, sort of for the fall mystery gnome knit along. And I don't think it's a secret to share that she has designed this gnome so that it can be completed in a variety of sizes. So normally her gnomes are mostly done in fingering weight, and they are short little stuffy toys that are not super big. Everyone apparently has been clamoring for a bigger gnome, so what she did this time is she designed the gnome in a variety of sizes and yarn weights and gauges so that you could knit yourself an actual like 3-foot tall gnome if you really wanted to. So it has been a super fun one. I think the pattern originally went on sale in August sometime, and now we have actually, the clues have started dropping. The first clue dropped on Friday. And to be honest, I hadn't remembered that I'd signed up for it. I mean, I knew I had signed up for it, but I hadn't remembered when it was starting, and so it was sort of a surprise, and I was like, I should not do this right now, and of course, because it was a fun holiday weekend, and I was like, oh, throw caution to the wind. And a gnome is not like a real cast on. It's not like a sweater or a shirt. Right. So I cast on. So I chose to do a larger gnome. I am not doing probably the largest gnome, because what I will say is that I had been trying to decide what I wanted to do. Sarah Shira usually works with a variety of dyers to provide yarn kits if you would like to buy them, and so she certainly has a number of kits available. They're not actually sold through her, they're sold through all the dyers she works with. For instance, I know Miss Babs has a kit that you can buy in pretty much any of the 3 sizes. There are also tons of other dyers. I know that she tries to work with dyers on every continent as far as she can. I'm pretty sure there are none in Antarctica, but I'm pretty sure she has the other continents covered. And so you can buy if you would like to, but I also like to use these as an opportunity to use up some of my stash. So last time I used some fingering weight stash in 3 skeins that were kind of designed, that I had used together in a shawl, and so I went ahead and put them into another project together. And this time I decided what I really wanted to do was do a gnome in some of my leftover handspun. I have lots of little bits and bobs of leftover handspun from over time, and particularly my handspun from my very early handspun adventures tends to be kind of worsted to bulky weight. And so I hadn't quite figured out what I wanted to do in terms of whether So what I thought was, since a lot of my early handspun is worsted to bulky weight, I could use some of that, and when I needed to, I could hold handspun doubled or tripled to get that weight. And so I started kind of tossing up my stash for all of my different bits and bobs of handspun and trying to decide what precisely I wanted to do. At first I thought I wanted a really scrappy gnome, but then when I looked at what I had, I thought it was going to just be a little bit too much. And so then I found some yarn that I had from an early spin that I tried, and I tried a bunch of things with this spin and they did not work. And so I had a bunch of little bits and bobs cut into bits and pieces, and so they were all kind of from the same fiber, but I put them together. So I will say, if you do not want to see this, now would be the time to look away, because the knit-along is ongoing, and if you do not want to be spoiled, then I don't want you to be spoiled. So I would say go ahead and look away now, and I will let you know when it's time to come back. I will try not to be super descriptive about what I did or what I'm showing. I'll show what I'm doing, and then I will talk about it a little bit more without the item in the picture. So look away now if you don't want to see, and I will show you that what I have selected to do is roughly a worsted weight, and I am working on the first part of the pattern, which is really super fun. So this is the beginning of the pattern, and ultimately I think it might be big enough to fit me because I still have quite a few increases to go, and I'll talk about the yarn in a second. So this is the first part of the pattern, and it's this part of the gnome. Okay, now I'm putting it away. So what I will talk about is I had it was a skein that I bought that was a pink gradient. It had very, very light petal pink, and then it had kind of a medium pink, and then it had kind of a dark pink. And what I did was I was trying to spin it in a gradient. But of course, this is at a time when I was fairly new to spinning, and I did not do very well at it. And sections of this, I believe, are chain ply, and well, I guess all of it is chain ply, and I didn't blend between the sections very well. I kind of separated, and I also think that I had sections that were not really usable, so I cut those sections out. I'm not really sure what I did. All I know is that I had a ball of light pink, a tiny ball of medium pink, and then a larger ball of dark pink with also some lighter bits in here. So I'm currently on the darker pink. I still have a ways to go before I finish the portion of the pattern that I am doing. And then the other thing that I pulled was I also had, and I do know what this was from. This was from when I knit a pink pussy hat for the Women's March, and this is kind of all shades of pink in it. It's got lights, it's got darks, and so I didn't know whether I could kind of blend that in with everything else. If I needed more, I wasn't sure how much I would need. I didn't want to hold it double-stranded, although maybe I should have. I don't know. I think ultimately what I'm going to come out with is that I'm probably going to come out with approximately a worsted weight large gnome, which I think if I looked at it was about 28 to 30 inches tall. So it should be a decent size. And my plan is that it will sit here on the couch with me and be my co-host when I finish. So you will definitely get to see it all finished. I don't know what I'm going to do for the body, because for the body I have kind of a whole bag of other crap in here that is just all kinds of mishmash. You know, I've got bits and pieces of leftover socks. I've got skeins that I spun from, these are some skeins that I've spun from Crazy Bats, which means it was bits and bobs of leftover things that we all kind of exchanged and pulled and drew out of a bag. And so like this one has purples and greens and blues. My thought actually is that what I might do is I have a bunch of things in kind of purples and greens and blues, and I might make that the body and either hold them together or not hold them together. But like I have a lot that looks a little bit like this with the purples and the greens and the turquoises and the blues. And so my thought is that maybe I will make this the body. So the top will be pink and then the body will be those darker colors. So that's all I'm going to say on that. I don't know that I will keep up with the knit-along because I have a million other things that I absolutely should be doing right now. And this is not one of them, but this is the fun bit that I am enjoying. So I will work on this as I have time, and it will get done eventually. I did not finish my last gnome during the Mystery Gnome-along. I did not even finish it in the generous month she gives you to finish up before she awards prizes. I'm not doing it for prizes, I'm doing it for fun. So that is what I have going on there. So it is also in my brand new Fat Squirrel bag. If you do not enjoy cursing, you probably won't enjoy this. I'm not going to read it aloud, but this is my brand new bag that I got. Oh, let's see if I can, there we go. That is what it says in the lovely cursive cursing, and I will have to be careful not to take this around my niece and nephew, but for now it is holding all of my hand-spun bits and bobs. And when I finish this project, I don't know if I'll knit a second one. I could, or I might try and do something with a lot of these leftover hand-spun bits. I know this is not all of my leftover hand-spun bits. I could turn them into hats. I could do whatever with them, but I'm kind of on a use up the bits and bobs of leftovers kick. So that is what I'm working on right now. So finally, in knitting content, before I move to spinning content, I think, and I didn't rewatch the podcast, but I am pretty sure that I did not share what I got on my trip to Norway last time. I'm pretty sure that I talked about the store vaguely, briefly, said I would talk more about it at the end of the podcast, and then absolutely did not. So today I'm going to share my haul from Norway. So I told you a little bit about my trekking through and mostly not finding stores. We found a store that was open on the last Sunday that we were in Oslo, and we took a walk up there. And it is a really fun store, even if it was not 100% to my tastes and my knitting. So the reason that I say that is it is this lovely little store, and it is called Strikkefeber, which you can see here. I got some swag, so it's strikke, which I know means knitting, and feber, which is probably fiber. So I'm sort of pronouncing it German. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it Norwegian. It is www.strikkefeber.no. And one of the things that was really interesting when I went and looked about them online is that they had a bunch of their own yarn lines, which I thought was really, really cool. The other thing I will say is I bought this needle gauge thinking, that's great, that's awesome. It is all in millimeters and centimeters, so if depending on what size needle I'm looking for or what kind of gauge I'm doing, I have to convert to the metric system, which I should do anyway because it's much more accurate than randomly calling things by US needle sizes that have no standardization. But I thought it was really funny because the first time I tried to count for my swatch, I was like, oh wait, those are not inch marks. Anyway, so we went to the store, and the big thing that they specialize in over everything else is mohair. They have like walls and walls of mohair silk, bulky mohair, all kinds of yarns with mohair. And as you know, I generally don't knit with them because I find them pretty itchy. So I was a little concerned at first that I might not find what I wanted. Now, it is absolutely stunningly gorgeous to look at, and I contemplated buying a skein of mohair, but ultimately I decided I would just look at it and I would not actually use it, which was not quite to what I wanted to do. So I went in and looked around, and it turned out they had a number of other yarns that were their own brand in a variety of things. They had a merino, they had an alpaca, they had a mohair alpaca. They also had something that they called re-merino, which is what I got. Re-merino, I think it stands for recycled merino. And what it is this is what it looks like. Strickefaber re-merino. And it is 50% recycled fibers. It doesn't specifically say what they are, but I believe it's just recycled wool. There probably is a little bit of mohair or alpaca in here because it's kind of fuzzy. It's got a pretty good halo. And then it's 50% merino. It is a 50-gram ball, 100 meters. It calls for US 5 to 7 millimeters, so that's going to be a 6 to 8. So that's going to, it's roughly a DK weight, and it is lovely. And I got it in 2 colorways, thinking that I would do a colorwork sweater. So the main colorway that I got is kind of this dark tealy blue, and then I got this like minty color, figuring I could do some color work. And so my plan for it is to do a yoked sweater with some kind of Nordic inspired color work on top. I don't know. I've been looking at patterns. I found some that kind of have fir trees and things like that, and so I might do something like that. I haven't quite decided, but I do know that I want it to be kind of Nordic inspired, and I actually went and looked to see if I could find some patterns by Nordic designers, specifically Norwegian designers, although I might settle for Sweden if I find a pattern that I really like. So that is what I got. That is sort of my my sweater from Norway, and actually my plan is to knit this up in November for Nanny Swaymo, so not too far away now, and I just need to find a pattern that I would like to do and swatch, and then as I said, in November my plan is to knit a sweater that reminds me of my time in Norway. The shop was absolutely lovely. Actually, I have their business card, which also kind of doubles a little bit as a needle gauge. I thought this was kind of a cute idea. It's like a business card and a ruler and a needle gauge, so it's Strikkefeber. And the other thing that was super fun was I went in, and so I bought a sweater quantity, and then I bought a little extra. I didn't know precisely what sweater I wanted, and I knew that I didn't want to run out of yarn, and I didn't really want to be limited. So basically, I pulled out what I thought would be appropriate for a sweater, which I think was about 1,000 yards of the main color, and then about 300 yards of the contrast color, just to be sure I had what I needed. And then I added one more skein of each. Because I was like, I can't run out because I can't go back, and there'll be no matching dye lots. And I mean, I could shop from them online. I do believe they ship to the United States, but I was like, I don't want to chance this. I just want to buy everything I need. So it was fairly reasonably priced, because I got out of there spending, I think, right around $100, which for a full sweater quantity of wool and a few other things is not expensive at all, really. But it was pretty funny because we were standing at the register, and I bought the needle gauge, but they threw in some stitch markers, they threw in a darning needle, they threw in some Kinder candy. They were just throwing a bunch of random things in the bag, and my husband was like, afterwards, my husband was like, they kept throwing things in the bag, and I'm like, yeah, honey, I spent right around $100 in there. I bought a lot, so they were throwing like little extras in, and they knew I was an American tourist and was going to take it home and talk about it. So, I mean, they didn't know about my podcast or anything, but obviously they knew I was going to take it home and talk about it. The other thing that I thought was really, really funny was, as I was shopping in there, she, when I was looking at the Remerino, because it was one of the ones that didn't have alpaca and mohair in it, she said to me, okay, so that knits up at a DK weight, and then she pulled a sample off the shelf, and she said, we knit this one holding this yarn with mohair. That's really hot right now. And I kind of laughed a little bit because, obviously, yeah, I laughed only because I know that's hot. It's been hot for the last few years, and I don't know if they're ahead of us or behind us or precisely, or if they're running parallel with us, but I just thought it was funny because she was like, you could totally get it with some mohair and hold it there, and that's like the really hot style right now. And I was like, yeah, I can't wear mohair. And they did not have, I was looking to see if they had any Surrey alpaca or something different. Basically they had like mohair silk and mohair alpaca and a variety of other things. So I did not partake of the mohair, even though I really wanted to, but I did get their yarn, and that was really nice, and I'm looking forward to knitting that up into a sweater. So that was the piece that I think I skipped last week. I got to where I was like loading it, I was cutting it together and then loading it onto YouTube, and I was like, I don't think I even talked about what I got. I think I said I'd save that for the end, and then the podcast got long, and then I skipped it, and I was like, everyone was probably like, but what did you buy? So that's what I bought. And you will see it again soon, because I do plan to, I hadn't decided if I was going to knit an Annie Swaymo sweater this year, because I have a lot of things that are in progress and a lot of things I would like to get to and some sweater quantities, and I really hadn't decided, but I decided now I'm kind of amped to knit a Norway sweater. So that is what I'm going to do. And if you have any suggestions for DK weight color work patterns that you think might fit what I'm looking for, I certainly welcome them. I have looked a little bit at Janine Steingass's Knit Love Wools patterns, and I don't know that they're Nordic inspired enough for me. I think I really would like to stick with something that you know, has some of that symbology in it. So I'm gonna look. I have looked at Arnie and Carlos's. I think most of theirs are more worsted weight rather than DK. It does occur to me that with a DK yarn, particularly one that's got a little bit of a halo, I could probably also just knit a different size in the pattern and potentially accommodate for it. So it looks like this one's going to be another long one again. I have 2 more things to share with you, and that's in the realm of spinning, and then I will let you go. So I did finish a skein this week. This is not washed or dried yet, so I really don't know. My hope is that it will be in the neighborhood of 375 to 400 yards. However, it is in Tarhi, and so Tarhi tends to puff up a lot, which means it shrinks up a little bit and I lose some yardage when I wash it. But this is, I can't remember, I think this is Popette. And I was wrong in saying that it was a recent one. I think this is from like 2014 or 2015, so it really is not recent at all. It was a Hello Yarn Club colorway, and it's got mostly purples in it. It's got purples and lavenders, a lot of white, and then a little bit of tan. So it's kind of a nice soft color. I mean, the purple is showing up kind of dark here. It definitely does have a few dark bits, but it also has like a lot of lavender bits. So it's really kind of a blue tan. I mean, I think this would be really nice if you want to knit something for like a baby boy. I think it would be a good color for that. Not that I'm really gendering colors, but I just think it's nice. It's very soft looking, and it actually is soft as well. It will be softer after I wash it, and kind of springy and fun, but it's like light blues and light tans and a little bit of light purple kind of on the indigo side. So it's really, really pretty. I think it will be fun, and this will go up in my shop after I wash it. I'm planning to dunk it in the sink as soon as I'm done here. I literally finished plying this last night, so I decided to just show it to you before I give it a wash, but then I'll know what the final stats on it are. I do know it's 4.1 ounces and 116 grams. I know how many wraps I got, which can give me some insight into the yardage, but really until it's washed and thracked and I measure it again, I don't ever really count the yardage as final. So look for this in the shop a little bit later this week, which means it is time to start on another spin. And I was really excited. My local yarn store is Yarn Social KC, and they are a lovely yarn store, and they support a lot of brands that I really like to support. And they really make an investment in trying to find BIPOC fiber artists and do good in the community. And I really, really appreciate that, and I'd like to support them. I also really like to buy spinning fiber. So when they noted that they had all new spinning fiber from Kim Dye's Yarn, I was really excited. And I immediately was like, great, I want to go up there. And it turns out that was the week that Wes had COVID. And so I was like, but I can't go up there. I can't go anywhere. So I went ahead and ordered online and had it shipped to my house, and it was great, and it arrived. And so I have a couple braids to spin through. This colorway is called Red Robin, and it is 75/25 Polworth wool Tussa silk. So this is, it reminds me very much of fall colors. It's got kind of an orangey red, I assume, for kind of the robin redbreast, which often is not actually red, even though it's called that. And then we've got grays, and it's got a little bit of kind of a pinky or a mauve-y in it, and some purples. So some browns, some grays, really very neutral, looks a lot like a robin redbreast, and I am very excited to get that one spun up this week. So I'll be working on that. I don't know that I'll finish that before we meet next time. My guess is I might finish the singles, I might not be finished with the plying, but we'll just have to see. So that is what's on my wheel for this week. So I hope that you have a wonderful week ahead of you. I hope that if you're in the US or Canada or any of the other countries that celebrate the Labor Day holiday, that you have enjoyed an extra day off this week and haven't worked too hard this weekend. I do think I'm going to do a little bit of work this afternoon, just because I have a few things I should get to, but then I'm going to take the evening off and do nothing but knit. So I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend, or are kicking off your week. I hope the week goes smoothly, that you stay healthy, that you find some happiness somewhere, and that you are enjoying your crafting. And I will say, as I always do, thank you for joining me, and until I see you again, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!